I just got done listening to a show earlier while I was working on the studio, and I'm a little bit flushed right now because I've been running around cold outside and kind of peeved too, to be honest with you. I'm kind of peeved at this whole notion, um, these comments, and I'm beginning to wonder after hearing all of these comments about Jared Goff and Hendon Hooker, and you know, um, I really began to wonder, ask myself, what's going on here? Like, what is the issue with this? That it's becoming such a drama fest now in Detroit. For a fan base, um, wherever you are, I guess it's not just in Detroit, but wherever you are as a fan. But this fan base seems to be kind of like off its kilter. Like, I don't know. Maybe we're not the only fan base that does this. But I want to hear your honesty with this because I'm going to give you my honesty, and that's all I ever ask in return is just be honest with yourself and what this is all about. We're just going to talk, or at least I am for now, and I'll hear you guys later. So, are we just saying stuff to say stuff? Like that's one question I have, or do people truly mean some of the things that they are saying? And I want to flesh it out. Let's hear it. But I want to start, hearing some real reasons too. I want to hear some facts, some stats, some evidence. I want you to convince me and others, not just me, but others. Sell yourself, sell your point of why you believe Hendon Hooker should start over Jared Goff again in 2024. So convince me. But before I really get going too deep into this video, I do want to make sure that I'm abundantly clear. Excuse me. That I'm abundantly clear on a few things. Number one, I projected Hendon Hooker to be a fit for the Detroit Lions prior to the draft. I called the pick in the third round where Hendon Hooker was going to get selected. I said that's where Hendon was going to end up. And he did. About 3 weeks or so prior to the draft, I wrote this long article. I explained all of the best picks that I thought that the Lions, should go after, the best fits, the players, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, all of it. I laid it all out. And for an analyst to do that is incredibly rare. For somebody that was just getting started in this, myself, to do that, I don't think it's ever been done before. And I've heard some of the other scouts around the league that I've spoken to and how incredible they thought that it was that I was able to project not only the first pick, but the next four for one team is insanity. The reason why I'm pointing that out is because we get a few things right here. We try to do it the right way. And it's all through time-tested research, time on task, like Dan Campbell loves to preach. We put the work in to kind of give you, the best content we can to help educate the fan base, educate myself. That's my main focus here is have fun. Let's educate and be part of the solution, not part of the problem. But again, had Hendon Hooker not blown out his knee, I thought that he was probably the second best quarterback in the draft last year. Second best. And I thought that, again, if he had not blown out his knee, he would have been a top 5 pick in last year's draft, without a doubt. So I do feel highly about Hendon. Watching his tape made me feel even better about Hendon Hooker. So I'm a huge supporter. This is what I'm trying to put out there. And I mean, just like, I'm a huge supporter of Jameson Williams. I can be critical at times, but I'm still a supporter, right? Or anybody really that's second fiddle to be, being a starter on the Detroit Lions. I'm a supporter. I want to see him do well. Why wouldn't I? And I believe that, Hendon Hooker has the makeup of being a good quarterback in the NFL because we haven't seen anything yet. But franchise quarterback? Yeah, I'm not so sure on that. But that's what we're going to talk about. And that's where we're headed to next. And if you love cream soda, got to get you some Henry Weinard's cream soda. This stuff is awesome. No, they're not a supporter or sponsor of this channel, but I don't drink alcohol. If I do, it's extremely rare. So cream soda it is today. So let's talk about Hendon Hooker and Jared Goff and why some of the fan base thinks that Hendon Hooker is some savior to the Detroit Lions organization. And because really some of these reasons are just baffling to me. Maybe some of you are serious. Maybe some of you are just talking to talk. But if you think Hendon Hooker is some savior or better than Jared Goff, you have a lot of explaining to do. Look, if I were to throw some wild accusation out there that said Marcus Davenport is better than Aiden Hutchinson, y'all would kill me, like straight up kill me in the comment section. You'd probably, every single one of you would unsubscribe from the channel. That's what you're doing right now to Jared Goff. You were saying that Hendon Hooker is better than Jared Goff. It's insane to me. So number one, this is what I've heard or read. Some of the exact phrases is one, don't pay Goff. Hendon Hooker is better than Goff. Okay. Convince me. Sell me. Tell me how. Number two, trade Goff, put Hooker in. Number three, Goff can't throw the deep ball. Hooker's arm is butter. Are we serious right now? Like, just because Ali McNeil went on the Green Light podcast with Chris Long and said, that Hendon Hooker had an amazing arm in practice and it's like butter. So now we're just taking what other people are saying and just regurgitating it and using that as the gospel to Hendon Hooker is, he's God's gift to green earth that walks the pasture in Allen Park. I don't think so. Just because Ali McNeil is praising a player on his team does not mean that he's ready to take snaps under center from Ragnow. And he better have a good arm. You are a backup quarterback in the NFL. You better have a good arm. He's a pro now. And then prior to 2023, I heard things like this or read, Goff is trash. Hooker should be the starter. Goff is a bum. He can't win big games. Forget Goff. Put Teddy in to start the season. Goff won't ever take us anywhere. Goff won't ever win a playoff game. Like, really? The guy darn near won a Super Bowl in his first real full season as a starter in LA. So that's really where I'm going to start here. 2023. How did Goff do? Well, first and foremost, highest graded performance of his career. Best season ever for him as a pro. Nevertheless, he was no less than top 5 in explosive plays for last season. And explosive plays are 20 yards and beyond. He was top 4 in attempts, 2nd in completions, 7th in completion percentage, 4th in TDs, 1st in TDs in the postseason. I think he threw 11. Tied for 7th in interceptions and interception ratio. 2nd in passing yards, 3rd in success percentage, which is huge. While Goff had to deal with the 5th most drops in the league by percentage, his receivers dropped 6.1% of all on-target passes. 5th most in the league. Which means, by the way, let me get into a couple more stats here. He did contribute 87 bad throws. But when you chuck the ball as many times as he did, you're going to have a few bad passes. But that was behind CJ Stroud, Matthew Stafford, Bryce Young, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, who all had more bad throws. But what Goff was so good at, that, his bad throw percentage landed him in the middle of the pack at 14th best in the league. Or 18th worst, whatever way you want to look at it. But his on-target pass percentage was 4th best in the league at 80.3%. So that means that 80.3% of every single ball that left his arm was on target. And 6.1% of those balls were dropped by the receivers. And the other percentage that's really missing here would be, that about 3.7% of the time that a defender made a play. That's about it. So I am just done, like truly done trying to convince people of the fact that Jared Goff is the leader of this team. That Jared Goff is a damn good quarterback. You ever get a damn good haircut at Jude's? He's a damn good quarterback. And dare I say, by the stats alone, he's a top 5 QB in this league. Deserves to be paid like one, and he will be. But especially last season, he's proven it over and over, but at least the last 2 seasons in Detroit, that he can get the job done. I don't even think he threw an interception in the playoffs. Matter of fact, I truly don't believe that he did. I should have checked that stat. But we know that he didn't drop a pass. He didn't fumble the rock, right? He didn't miss all the tackles. He didn't lose all those games. He definitely didn't lose the last one. He didn't run a bad route. He certainly didn't give up 27 unanswered points by the defense or miss a ton of tackles in the last game of the season or postseason. He didn't play out of position, right? He didn't have a ball bounce off of his face. What did he do, though? His job at a very high level. Yeah, he may run like a little baby giraffe at times. He's a little clunky. He's tall. He's lanky. You don't see too many tall guys running around athletically. They just don't, unless they're basketball players. So now let's talk about this Goff versus Hendon stuff. How do we compare the two? Because I heard this one too. Well, Hendon had a better career in college than Goff. Really? Why does that even matter? I don't even know how you can really compare the two. You're talking two totally different eras of football, for one. Two, vastly different offensive schemes. But let's take a wild crack at it, shall we? So Goff in 2015 completed more passes than Hooker even attempted. Now, 2015 would be comparable or, to Hendon Hooker's equivalent of his final season in 2022. 2015 was Goff's final season in college. So I'll say it again. In 2015, Goff completed more passes than Hendon Hooker even attempted in any season, honestly, but in 2022 at Tennessee. That's where Hendon Hooker went to college, at Tennessee, because he played for two different schools. And starting with his 2022, final year, that's kind of where I'm looking here, and I'm looking backwards. So before you tell me that, oh, well, Hendon was hurt in 2022, he tore his ACL, or whatever the case may be, we can go back a previous season too. So let's look at 2021. Hooker played in 13 games. Goff played in 12. Now, that would have been Goff 2014 season. Hendon attempted 302 passes, while Goff completed 316. Goff averaged 520 pass attempts each and every season for 3 seasons in a row. That's 1,560 pass attempts. While Hendon averaged or attempted an average of 250 passes per season. He only played in 32 games to Goff's 37 over a 3-year span. Big difference over 3 seasons, isn't it? Double the pass attempts. More than double the completions. Goff threw 43 touchdowns in 2015 to Hendon's 27 in 2022. Goff threw 4,700 yards rounding up to Hendon's 3,100 yards, again, rounding up. Goff threw 35 TDs in 2014 to Hendon's 31 TDs in 2021. And again, Goff's 4,000 yards to Hendon's 3,000 yards, rounding up again, just slightly. But see, this is where the buck stopped with me. Let's forget about college. Because absolutely 0% of it matters today. The day or the moment that you enter the NFL draft and you walk through that door and you head towards the NFL, you're done. College is done. I don't care if you had 50 sacks as a senior defensive end. None of it matters. You start with 0 in the NFL. Everything starts at 0. Let me mention this, though, because you guys know that I love to do research. And the thing that I came away with, and one of the main talking points by a lot of the NFL scouts and, is that the simplicity of Tennessee's offense would end up having a negative impact or effect on Tennessee players when it came to the NFL draft and taking that next step to the NFL, especially for quarterbacks. That the system was so simple that quarterbacks are not developing the mental side of the game the same way that future NFL teams would have hoped and are expecting them to be ready when they enter the league. Now, in Hendon's case, it has been mentioned a few times that Hendon was doing great with learning the system and Ben Johnson's offense and the offensive scheme, and that Mark Brunell threw just about everything he could at Hendon Hooker, and Hendon fired right back with a lot of the answers and was doing really well. At least that's what Mark Brunell said. That he got a lot of the answers right. That's great. It's phenomenal. That's what he should be doing. You got a lot of time to sit there and read the playbook. You're not playing. So that would speak that maybe he has the mentality to grasp new things. That just because he was in a simple system doesn't limit what he can do in the future. Which I would hope, obviously, Brad would have known that, or at least, you would think that he would have known that, or he wouldn't have taken Hendon Hooker in the 3rd round. Because football intelligence is so important to Brad Holmes. The question is, though, the mental side, understanding it, that's one thing. Doing it on the field, totally different. Completely different, honestly. And that's why it does not matter what you did in college. The only thing that matters is how you prepared in college for the next level. Were you in a pro-style Alabama or Michigan-type offense? Or were you in this funky Tennessee offense? And I've done a lot of the research on Tennessee, last year before the draft. And you know that I'm going to bring it up right now. A lot of the same stuff that I found last year, about this offense. This is what I came up with, or at least the offense that Tennessee ran when Hendon Hooker was there. It has its roots of high school level football in Texas. That's where this offensive scheme came from. Art Briles, long before he was Baylor's head coach, began looking for ways to score more points. He wanted a more potent offensive attack. And so what he did is he started to snag basketball players. He wanted basketball players to play for him because they were more athletic. They were bigger, they were taller, and they could run. Asking them to come and play, or at least try out for football. He wanted big, tall receivers to play the game to help this offense score points. There's a big difference between having a bunch of 6-foot guys out there versus, 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", basketball players. Huge difference, especially that, if they can run. So what he created was a scheme that was very quarterback friendly and allowed for lots of deep shots to these superior athletes, these basketball athletes on the outside perimeter of the field. But because Briles' offensive roots were also part of Bill Yemen's veer offense from Houston, the run game was also used in many of those concepts. He kind of merged the two together. And in what made, an offense simple yet very lethal at the high school level, also transitioned to Tennessee's level in college, where, the wide receiver splits, very wide and usually on both sides. You've got wide receivers almost to the boundary line on both sides. You don't have that in the NFL. You hardly would ever see something like that in the NFL. It's not typical. You just don't do it. And the problem is that offense just doesn't translate at all. You don't have guys spread out on both sides. Or at least very rarely do you ever see that. You've got guys up in tight. You've got jumbo formations, 2 tight end formations, 21, 12, 22 personnel, 11 personnel, whatever it is. But you usually have, one side in and maybe one guy on the outside. Or maybe you split out into a bunch or, trips formation, something. But you don't have a guy wide, all the way to the sideline on the other side. Even in a Hail Mary situation, you barely get guys all the way to the boundary line. So it just doesn't translate at all. It's just not the same. So while all of these people that I keep seeing and hearing are clamoring for Hendon Hooker to be the quarterback, to me, this is just absolutely mind-blowing. Hendon has 0 starts, 0 snaps as a backup or a starter in the NFL. He hasn't even gotten into a preseason game. He's coming from a Tennessee offense that is widely used in high schools across Texas. In some colleges, a few colleges here or there. It's also widely regarded as a problem for any player trying to make a leap to the NFL. Now, that doesn't mean that Hendon can't become something. Like I've already said earlier, if he's got the mental ability to transition to learning new schemes, that's half the battle. The skill set on the field is the other half. Putting it together is very difficult to do. So I guess what I'm saying is it doesn't mean that he can't eventually transition into being well-rooted into Ben Johnson's offensive game plan and scheme and do well. It doesn't mean that he can't. It just means like right now, he hasn't. He hasn't done anything. So when I hear people in 2023 saying that Hendon should be the starter over Jared Goff, how is that going to even happen? He has had 0 experience in a pro style of offense. You can't just walk into this and expect that he's going to just go out in the field and play lights out. It doesn't work like that. It would have been a miserable season if it did happen, but still, I'm not done yet. It couldn't have happened. I mean, quite honestly, less than 10% of rookies ever do anything. I've done this research numerous times. I've shared it on this channel multiple times where I've gone back and looked at every rookie quarterback drafted in the first round since 2016. I didn't even have to get into the second and third round because anybody past the first round didn't even do anything besides Brock Purdy until this year or till last year. But we'll give Hendon, the benefit of the doubt here. On his knee at least, that dropped him a few rounds, thinking that he probably would have been a first-round talent. There's only been 2 rookie quarterbacks to make the playoffs or really do anything with their career since 2016 in their first year. On average, it takes 2.5 seasons for a rookie quarterback of any magnitude to do anything in the NFL. Lamar Jackson was one of the ones that did something in his first year. And Joe Burrow, I think, did it, in his second year. And then you've got Patrick Mahomes. He sat for a little bit, but the minute that he got in, he started playing well. That's it. That's really all you have. Oh, then of course you've got Jared Goff, who in his first real season with the Rams did what he did. Now, some of these stats have obviously changed a little bit now that CJ Stroud had a nice breakout season. Now, he's the exception, not the rule, because now he's like the third or the fourth quarterback since 2016, drafted in the first round, out of more than 35 or 40 quarterbacks by now that have been drafted since then that have done anything as a rookie. The majority of them barely win 5 games as a rookie. But I want to go back to something. It wasn't possible for Hendon Hooker to do anything in 2023. Did you guys forget that he tore up his knee November 19th of 2022? That is a 12-month recovery. Call it 10, even if you want to. That's still not the beginning of the season. How is he going to start in 2023? Doesn't make any sense. So that's my first real question. How is he going to start the 2023 season as a starter while he's rehabbing an ACL? Damo didn't play until almost December of his first year. And the large majority of players don't come back for at least 11 months. And then it takes them 4, 5, 6 games to even get their feet back underneath them. So he was never going to be able to start a game in the NFL until at least November of 2023, which would have been, of course, after the Thanksgiving Day game. It also would have been when the Lions were already on their way to clinching the NFC North. I think that, and I realize it took a few weeks after that, but I think we were, 9-3 at that point or something like that. So if you honestly think that Hooker would have been the starter or would have come in and played reliever for Jared Goff, I guess I have an even bigger question for you. Do you really even know football? Do you understand how any of this works? Or are we just out there flapping our gums and just saying whatever sounds great? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, there's no possible way that Hendon Hooker could have even started the season or even really played last season, not going through an offseason, not going through a training camp, not building any chemistry with any of the players. This will be his first offseason where he can actually practice. He was not even allowed to practice last year. When you were on the NFI or the injury exempt list or whatever list he was on, I can't remember the exact one he was on now. He could do the classroom work, right? I mean, he could do all the training. He could, work with the trainers. He could do weight training. He could do all of that stuff, all the independent work, but he was not allowed to suit up with the guys. He was not allowed to do the drills with the guys. He really couldn't even be on the same field half the time. And I'm not saying that he didn't do anything because he did work. He did put some time in. Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes have both said that they, he wasn't even really allowed to do anything until the last 6 games of the season when he was elevated. And again, he was only elevated because there's an NFL rule that if you are not elevated or at least accumulate minimum of 6 games in a season on the active roster, your contract becomes tolled, which means he would have not earned a full season of eligibility in his first year in the NFL. Which, quite honestly, it's only for player benefits this young in your career. You have to accrue so many seasons to be eligible for, certain player benefits and retirement and, 401k stuff. Typical employer type benefits. But in the NFL, it's a little bit different because they have all of these different programs for these guys to utilize. So the Lions really did Hendon a solid by elevating him when they didn't have to, but they promised him, or at least made the promise, to all of us that they were going to bring Hendon Hooker up at, the first moment that they had, and their plan was to elevate him. And you know what? That was before they made the playoffs. They talked about it in May, I think it was, that their plans were to eventually upgrade Hendon Hooker, elevate him to the roster before the end of the season. And they followed through on that. It's the only reason why he was elevated. It wasn't for anything else. He was never going to play. Now, I was hopeful. I thought that he would get some garbage time, maybe. There really wasn't any. I was also hopeful that Teddy Bridgewater would be able to take a snap and, take a knee or something and, kneel down, whatever, wave to the crowd and, walk off the field, say goodbye. But that didn't happen either. So again, look, you guys don't get a whole lot of videos like this from me. But we have to have the real conversations with ourselves. And to me, it's like really eye-opening that these things are even being said right now, or even being brought up. I get it. It's an attractive option to not pay Jared Goff $47.5 million and extend him 3 to 4 seasons. But you also have to understand how the cap works. It's truly, I've been saying this a lot lately, a fugazi. It truly is. Because, I mean, the number, it really doesn't matter how much he gets paid. It doesn't matter how much really anybody gets paid. Yes, it does hurt the cap at some point. But they're still going to be able to bring in the talent that they need to bring in. They're still going to be able to, sign the rookies every single year. They're still going to have money to do the things that they want to do in the trade deadline or in free agency, or extend the players that they've already drafted. They'll be able to get it done. They could have gone out and grabbed a couple of top tier guys if they wanted to in the offseason this year and still got it done. There's a million ways to do these NFL contracts now and make it very attractive in the first year. So the restructure, the restructure usually happens, year 3 or so of a bigger contract. And, even you could do it in the first season or the second season if you really needed to. Teams do it all the time. They pay you this big contract and then they restructure. How do you think teams start $80 million over the cap in January and they're surplus $20 million before the new league year hits? $100 million swing without really releasing a whole lot of guys or doing anything crazy. It's not like you have $100 million worth of guys on your team that you can just release and still be able to develop a team and be ready for the season. I don't get it. Look, let me say this. Let's have a positive conversation with this, I guess. I do want you to sell me in the comment section and tell me how on earth Hendon Hooker was going to start last year and how Hendon Hooker is better or a better quarterback than Jared Goff, who's never taken a snap in the NFL. I would really love to see these answers. But what I really want to tell you all is if you really believe in the fact that Hendon Hooker is better and should be the starter of this team after everything Jared Goff has just done, does that not mean anything to you at all? He just went and proved everybody wrong again. All of the doubters, all of the haters. Jared Goff is trash. Put Hendon Hooker in to start the season. Put Teddy in to start the season. I mean, all of the same people that were asking for Hendon to be the quarterback are probably a lot of the same people that were saying that Jared Goff was trash. Couldn't take us to the playoffs. Can't complete a long pass when he clearly is a top 2 or 3 in the league at explosive plays over 20 yards. And that's the ball in the air for 20 yards. Remember that. It's not caught and then run for 20 or more yards. And the proof is all there. Just check out profootballreference.com or buy your membership to PFF and look at all the advanced data. We come to the table and talk in podcasts multiple times throughout the week. And we give you this information. I give you the stats. I give you the honest facts. I'm not just up here giving you lies and selling you a pipe dream. I'm giving you the information that you literally need to know. It's up to you what you want to do with it. If you still think that Jared Goff went in 9 games in 2022 and 14 games in 2023 is not good enough for you, 17 minutes away from a Super Bowl, I would like to know 5 other quarterbacks that are free right now that would be a better option than Jared Goff for less money than he's made the last 2 seasons, less than 32 million or less. 5 open quarterbacks that can come in and change the dynamic and bring us to a Super Bowl. They don't exist. I know they don't. It's just like when Dan Campbell says, it's easier to get worse than it is to get better at the quarterback position. All Jared Goff has done for 3 seasons is get better every single year inside this offense. He's constantly going against the grain. And he's still young. Jared is still young. Kirk Cousins is 35 years old right now and just got a giant bag. $150 million deal. If they're willing to pay somebody like Kirk Cousins that kind of money, are you telling me that Kirk Cousins is better than Jared Goff? I don't think so. He's 35. Jared's 29. Hooker's 25. Both of those guys can play till they're at least 35. Jared Goff has a minimum of 6 years left, as long as he wants, or at least as long as he wants to play that long, assuming he doesn't suffer some crazy injury or something. So the point I'm trying to make with this is Kirk Cousins just got a giant bag. He's 6 years ahead of Jared Goff. He hasn't done a damn thing in this league. He's had some good seasons. He's thrown the ball around a lot, just like Matt Stafford did. And he got paid because it's hard to replace good quarterbacks, good leaders, guys that know what they're doing. Put a team around him, he can pull out some wins. Jared didn't have a team in 2021. He truly did have trash. You could have pulled anybody from the stands out and thrown them on the field, and it probably would have been better. So the conversation today is really with you. If you are one of those that believe that Hendon Hooker is better than Jared Goff, do you just hate Jared Goff that much? Are you just upset because you were wrong about Jared Goff, that he wasn't, you thought that he wasn't going to work out and he did? It's okay to be wrong. Accept it, move on. Jared's your quarterback. But to spread all of this stuff all over the place and create all of this animosity on a team that doesn't need it, we want this team to go and win. We don't want to create some insular, drama fest and create some sort of negativity between Jared Goff and Hendon Hooker. It's the last thing we want to do. Do you really genuinely believe that Hendon Hooker is the answer? And if you do, I really am asking you to just explain it to me and sell me your points as to why Hendon Hooker deserves to start over Jared Goff. Prove it. Remember how your teacher used to say, prove your work? Don't just give me the answer. Stop spitting the answer to the test. Prove it to me. Show me. Just don't throw spaghetti on the walls and see if it sticks. Don't just say something to get a rise out of somebody. Put some sauce to it. Serve it up on a platter. Stick it in my face. Give me a fork. Let me eat it. Let me see if you're right. See if it makes sense. But until you do, to me, those words really don't mean anything. And I'm not going to continue to talk about it because I think that I just showed you how Goff is the answer. And that's another thing. I mean, expect Goff to get his extension. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, it'll get done after the draft. Usually around May is when these things get done. There's no secret here on how much he's going to get paid. But they don't have to extend him either. I don't think that would be right by Goff, but they don't have to. He still has another year under his contract. They can make him play through the last year of his deal, but I'll tell you what, they probably won't bring him back. He'll be off to a different team because they would definitely pay Jared Goff to go and lead them to the Super Bowl. There's a lot of teams that would love to have Jared Goff right now. The Lions will be able to do whatever they want to do to bring in new players. Whether, like I said, I would worry more about paying one wide receiver half the amount that you're about to pay Jared Goff than I would be about paying Jared Goff. Because at least, Jared Goff or any quarterback is clearly the most important position on your team. And it's extremely difficult to find good, solid quarterbacks to lead a team that are durable, that are intelligent, that are leaders, that are respected. He's the one that's going to have to feed the ball to those wide receivers. You take that quarterback out of the equation, what happens to Amon-Ra St. Brown? The last thing I'll say, or the last few things I'll say, and this crossed my mind a little bit too today, is that the Lions have been pretty hot now for the last few seasons. We've garnered a lot of attention as fans. Really since Dan Campbell started talking about biting kneecaps. The direction and the focus really was turned on the Detroit Lions, and fans kind of turned back to the team. So I'm wondering if we have a lot of young fans, a lot of new fans, a lot of bandwagon fans, that maybe they just don't understand the history in Detroit. They don't understand all the pain and the agony and the jokes that we've had to, be the brunt of and endure, all these losing seasons for decades. And I myself, being the loyal member and fan that I am for, 40 years now. And now having a quarterback like Jared Goff, who has just proved everybody wrong again and again and again, we're finally starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. But maybe it's these new fans that just don't understand what's at play here, what's happening, and how we haven't been in this position. And you don't want to just start ripping things apart because it may not come back together. But quite honestly, there's more to this. I mean, it's how the team loves Jared Goff. It's how the team plays for Jared Goff, respects Jared Goff, believes in him as a leader. And everything you hear from, the players, whether it's after a game or before a game or in a media session or whatever, how they talk about Jared Goff, how he just doesn't change. He's the same cool, calm, collected individual marching in to do his job. It doesn't matter what game it is, if it's his former team or not. He sticks to the plan, he goes in there and he wins. Goff is the same guy day 1 to day 365. He just doesn't change. And that's a good thing. He does it every day the same way. He creates consistency. He just wants to win. It doesn't matter, you know, it doesn't matter to him what's going on that week or what's being built up that week. He blocks it all out. And that's the true mark of a leader. Somebody that's not going to, get all amped up and, kind of get lost in the sauce, of sorts. He stays even. He stays even keeled, level headed. He leads, he gets his job done. I know one thing is for sure with me. That's the leader of my team. That's number 16, Jared Goff. Please stop this nonsense. All right, y'all. That's it for this episode. We'll see y'all in the next one.